Technically, we have the biggest threat to Azeroth ever, way bigger than the Burning Legion, and for the first time, the entire Void Realm is solidified by Xal'atath into one single army known as the Devouring Host. They're being led by the Domanaar, the Void Lord Lite versions, being so powerful that they could never be controlled until now. However, so far, despite the crazy threat of this force, the hype just doesn't seem to kinda be there. I mean, it doesn't really feel like a threat on the scale of Sargeras Legion, despite technically being more powerful. So let us look at what exactly is the Devouring Host, what is their army like, what is their goal, and what can we expect to see in Midnight and beyond. Anything Warcraft related, Warhammer, Destiny, pretty much any game you can imagine, you can get at the best market prices with my link in the description below on Gamivo. On top of that, I got mobile top-ups, software, a whole bunch of other things. Even better, if you use my code DORON, you will get another discount on top, so click my link in the description and check out Gamivo. So honestly, not to be negative or anything, but I do feel like there just isn't a crazy amount of hype so far for the Devouring Host. I mean, very close to the Midnight release, and really based on all the parameters, I mean, Devouring Host should actually be more dangerous than the Burning Legion. I mean, the Burning Legion is super iconic, everyone knows about it, but the name Devouring Host so far is very obscure. I mean, technically it is more powerful, but I really wanted to cover some of the information that we have because this army really does seem interesting, even though it doesn't really have the same legacy as Sargeras Legion. So, the gist of the new information is that Xal'atath is now a leader without any competition of the entire Void Realm, and I gotta say, as someone that monitored the lore super closely for like the last 20 years, this is a really strange turn of events, as since the Chronicle, I mean, the biggest threat in the universe were supposed to be the Void Lords, the crazy powerful guys that cannot manifest themselves. I mean, it was said that they were jealous of Titan's powers, but they were probably even more powerful, and we've learned so far in the saga that they don't even really exist anymore. They haven't existed for a really long time, which kind of makes the entire storyline of Sargeras kind of nonsensical, but that is a topic for another video. What we have learned was that all Devouring Dimensius really was the old Devouring, as he not only devoured planets but also other Void Lords, names of a few we've learned in the war with him. However, Dimensius was defeated by Sargeras in the ancient past, and only his fragments remained, and he was now summoned in the war with him, and we've defeated him, and Xal'atath took all his power and ascended to become more powerful than any Void Lord out there. It is assumed right now that she took control over his army, as the army is known as the Devouring Host, so very likely the personal army of Dimensius, the Old Devouring. I completely get why there is no hype so far about this crazy powerful army, and that is because they didn't really give it the justified build-up. I mean, think about it, this army is the reason, like the whole reason Sargeras created his legion in the first place and went on that entire mission. It is why the Naruk have been going crazy since forever, and now, for what appears to be the first time ever, we have a figure like Xal'atath that actually solidified this Void energy and all these Void minions into one organized army with a structure, bases, and all the logistics. The biggest problem so far with the Void was the fact that they're low energy beings, so they can't really be summoned to the material plane. As far as we know, they don't really have a god engine like the Legion, so they can't arrive in crazy large numbers, although Xal'atath is obviously working on this. I mean, that is pretty much the entire point of the saga. What we learned though is that aside from the minions and all these Void crazies coming in, she actually recruited the Domanaar, which previously seemed impossible, as these guys are essentially what the Eredar were in the Legion, like beings like Kil'jaeden and Archimonde. What we've discovered from the beta is that these guys are like second in terms of power, only weaker than the Void Lords, and these guys are absolutely crazy as well. I mean, so far we have discovered the names of 8 of them at Midnight, and they are, as you would imagine, Void commanders to be absolutely dedicated to chaos. We've learned that for the longest time they had their minions abduct random people from various planets to battle for their own amusement, and just like the old gods, they constantly battle each other for sport. It's like a completely normal thing to them. At Midnight, they recruit the Horde and the Alliance to battle each other, with one Domanaar leading one of the factions. Now, interesting enough, the Devouring Host, despite being the main army of the Void as a cosmological power, is not actually crazy diverse. I mean, so far, most of the Void beings we battle have been old gods, and what we've learned recently is that who even knows who the old gods are, and most of the creations have been heavily influenced by Azeroth and Flesh, but this army that we're facing is actually the cosmological void. These are just like full-on void beings. Most of the minions we're seeing are some versions of like void walkers, smaller, larger, void minions similar to the Shy and also void ethereals. It doesn't seem like a crazy army compared to the Legion that had like a gigantic arsenal, but it is important to keep in mind that this might kind of just be the first expeditionary force kind of setting the ground for the big guns to come in. Now, the Void does work a bit differently. The entire more subtle approach as opposed to Brute Force Legion, but they're kind of similar in a way. They do focus more on causing chaos, mind control stuff, the entire devouring aspect. So far, we've seen infiltrations with the Twilight's Blade causing chaos from within, the Shadow Guard Ethereals doing their thing, and also even massive mechanical constructs used by the host to channel dark energy and most importantly to anchor their presence in the material plane. You can also see this with the pylons, the Void pylons that Xal'atath is deploying to anchor themselves further. Now, the biggest problem of this army is them needing a power source because void beings have an even harder time to come into the material plane than the demons, and you know demons needed a crazy powerful source as well to do it, but that is pretty much the entire premise of this expansion. I mean, the central theme of the army so far seems to be reflected in like consumption and like soul harvesting. If you look at the Legion as an army that like obliterates everything, like brute force destroys everything, well, these guys are kind of similar, but they also try to wipe you out from history like you never even existed. Another big problem is what I said, I mean the lack of hype. I don't know about you, but I do feel a bit more in danger like when the Legion was invading a decade back than I do now, despite these guys having more serious designs, and also so far in Midnight, they're not actually performing all that well. I mean, they're getting pushed out by us almost right out the gate, so I'm guessing Xal'atath probably has a plan B. As I said, I think this current force is kind of like a probe, as realistically the Void is supposed to be crazy powerful, which is kind of why the hype is not really there. It seems quite possible that the Naru are going to come in this expansion, and we know the Titans are going to come themselves as well, which literally never happened, so something much bigger is definitely going to happen as we get further to the World Soul Saga. This entire build-up would be crazy for the Devouring Host if all they did was cause a regional problem in Xal'atath and they are pushed back for good. If you remember, first time the Legion invaded, the entire planet was sundered. Second time, most of the human kingdoms were destroyed, and last time we had to imprison Sargeras. So far, don't exactly know what Xal'atath's real plan is, despite knowing most of the story of 12.0. I don't think the plan was really to march in and just occupy territory. We may have set her back a bit, but I think she has something crazy up her sleeve, which is going to trigger all these other cosmological forces to have to come to Azeroth in person. I just hope they can kind of build them up in ways where they really feel like an invasion force, just like the Legion, but in a way I think it is kind of impossible, as the Legion really had to build up all the way from like Warcraft 3, so them arriving in WoW Legion was essentially like over a decade of story build-up over and over again. I mean, the Void guys have also been built up as Void Lords, but they were kind of changed last minute into the Devouring Host, so would be interesting to see how all this build-up is actually going to play out in real time. Thanks for watching. Check out a crazy secret that awaits us in Northern by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on real world history, Greek mythology, Titan lore that I've recorded live on site in Italy by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.